Hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Well, I recently did a video of the motorcycles and scooter that are in my garage, and most of the bikes and the scooter belong to my kids. And I got some comments from a lot of folks thinking that was great that my kids decided to ride, followed my interest in doing that. And I didn't know how common that might be. Just in general, I know that the ridership seems to be decreasing, although the last 2 years provides a lot of optimism that motorcycling's making a big comeback. But I thought I'd talk about how it came to be that my kids chose to ride and what it took to make that happen. Right now, I've got an older son who's 23, and he rides the Z900, and I have a daughter who's in her early 20s, and she rides the scooter. And I have another boy that just turned 16 recently, and he rides the Virago and the Vulcan 650S. And I've got another boy that's about to turn 14 that rides the MT-03. So the key in all that was having my wife's support. Everybody needs to make their own decision, obviously, about whether their kids are really cut out to ride a street bike and at what age, if so, that would be appropriate. I mean, it's a big decision. It's not the safest activity out there in the world, but I kind of believe in letting the kids do things that they enjoy and try to teach them to manage the risks as best they can. So how we embarked on that process was we started when they were young and let them ride as a passenger on the back of my bike. I know that's not for everybody. You might have a spouse or significant other that might object to a kid even riding as a passenger. But at least for me, when I was a young person, riding on the back of my dad's motorcycle was a thrill that you remember, still remember to this day. So I think that gets them introduced to the idea. And of course, not every kid's cut out to ride a bike, either by temperament or interest, but I think many of them are, boys, girls, women, young men can more likely than not find that they could be very interested in riding a motorcycle. So how did we start? Start out again, letting them ride as a passenger on the back of my bike. And then when they were about 7, we got dirt bikes, and we got a piece of property about an hour away from where we live so they could ride dirt bikes on this rural property. And then we made them all take the MSF course. And before they were old enough to actually take the MSF course, you have to be 15 before you could take the beginner course that involves coursework and the actual course riding, usually on a 250 motorcycle. Although if you take the class at a Harley dealership, you'll be riding a 500 street. But before that, I had them take the MSF E course. It's a $20 course. It gets them introduced to the basics of operating a motorcycle and rules of the road. I have no affiliation with Triumph Motorcycle, but I happened to get an email in January for a free e-course. You basically give them your contact information and they'll sign you up for the e-course. And my youngest boy, I actually had do that yesterday. That link still works. So I'll put the link in the description to this video. Hopefully it'll still work for many weeks to come. But if any of you know of someone who's interested in maybe starting out on a bike, that would be a good place to start. So then we would start with smaller displacement street motorcycles. My boy who just turned 16, we started him on a 750 Virago. A 750 is a little bit bigger than I would start most beginners on for a street bike, but he was so solid. He got up to a 125 on a dirt bike, and I felt that I was confident he could handle that street bike, and it turned out that he could. So he started there before he got the 650 Vulcan. My youngest boy started on the Z125 Pro before he moved up to the MT-03. In retrospect, I don't recommend either a Grom or a Z125 for a beginner bike. It's kind of ungainly, not enough power on the street. Any full-size person or half a full-size person is going to dwarf that bike. I know more experienced people have a blast on them, but I don't think they're a good beginner bike just because they're small. I would recommend Yamaha still makes a 250 V-twin cruiser. I think that's a great beginning bike. The downside there is that's what we did with my oldest son. We started him on that bike. He didn't have prior dirt bike experience, and after 1,000 miles, he was ready to move up from that 250, which he did. We got him a 650 Vulcan. It was actually my wife's, and he wrecked that one. And so what do you do with a kid that wrecks a 650? You buy him an 821 Monster. Actually, he was paying us back for that, but there were some mitigating circumstances. I felt like he could really benefit from being able to ride a bike and take his mind off some things that he was going through at the time, and it worked out really well. So again, look for that link. Also, there's a link to the video I did on my garage bikes, or the bikes that I keep in my garage. But I'd say the decision to let a kid ride a street bike is a big one. And when I first started taking my son, who's now 16, he was 14, where we live, you can get a learner's permit at the age of 14. You have to pass the car exam and the motorcycle written exams, and then you get a permit for either vehicle type. And so I was taking him out. They have to shadow you on a motorcycle. If you're in a car, you're in the passenger or the front passenger seat with them, and they're in the driver's seat. But on a motorcycle, I would lead, kind of run interference for him. And at first I was kind of under the illusion that I could run interference for anything that came down the pike on the road. And then I realized one time, he'd been riding for about 6 months. We had a wrong way driver headed straight at us. We were going about 45 miles an hour, and they were going probably 45 miles an hour just as we crested a hill. And by the time we spotted that car, it was probably 150 feet away, probably at a distance such that our reaction time was less than a second. And without even thinking, I just swerved. And then a split second later, I realized, and it was before we had our headsets, that, boy, I hope he swerved too. And I was just, beside myself that, hey, I should have, I kamikazed that car or something. It was just too quick for conscious thought. And so the other thing that he missed the car. I think it was great that I swerved, because he would tend to shadow my moves. So he saw me swerve and he just followed suit. And I think he spotted the car about the same time I did anyway. But we both got out of the way, and it was great. But it got me on this whole chain of thinking about how wrong I was, that I thought I could protect him out in traffic. I just can't. I could do what I can, but ultimately it depends on his skill in reading traffic, handling the bike, knowing how to react to the situation. In a way, it's sort of a metaphor for how you prepare a kid for life in general. A parent can't be there when all the bad things that inevitably happen to a person as they grow up happen. But instead, you try and prepare them, instill good values, good coping skills, good ability to reason through things, so that they can react to those situations accordingly on their own. So that's really the philosophy I recommend. That's what we took anyway with our kids, is that you prepare them by getting lots of parking lot practice at first, then street practice in quiet times, not during rush hour. Avoid Friday evenings. We don't ride when there's a Super Bowl or a major event where people are out partying. We're not going to go ride on New Year's Eve, things like that. Just be as careful as we can. Don't ride when the weather's really nasty. Try and provide that exposure to riding in the rain under as much controlled conditions as you can, close to home. So really, that's my philosophy. I hope this might be of interest to other people. Again, it depends. You have to have the support of your significant other, whether you're uncle, aunt, grandparent, mother, father. Everybody's got to be on board to let a kid either ride as a passenger or at some point ride on their own. But I think if more people were inclined to help kids manage risks, I think it helps the kids build a lot of self-esteem and provides the ability to manage other things in their life. We just recently bought a second family car, a little Miata that's a stick. Is a 5-year-old car. And it turns out that all my kids who have ridden motorcycles could drive a stick just in nothing flat. So I didn't really think about that, but just the ability to manipulate a clutch and shift gears, it translated very well from a motorcycle to a stick shift car. So, please let me know what your experiences are or your thoughts about letting a kid ride a street bike. Do you think as a society we've become overprotective of our kids? And that's in large part why maybe ridership has declined. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that. I think there's a variety of factors, but I think that's one of them. So again, please let me know your thoughts, and please look out for the next video. Thanks very much.